You're in the shower, and somewhere between washing your hair and standing there motionless for 11 minutes, you've rehearsed an argument with someone who doesn't even know they've upset you yet. Or maybe you're driving to work, and somewhere on the motorway, you've just delivered the most articulate, devastating response to something your manager said in a meeting 3 weeks ago. Perfect timing. Everyone in the imaginary room is quietly impressed. And then a car horn pulls you back, and you realize you've been doing 47 in the outside lane with the expression of someone accepting a Lifetime Achievement Award. If any part of that made you want to look around nervously, awesome. Because there's something that happens inside a specific type of mind, and it's hardly talked about accurately. Not the everyone daydreams thing, that's not what this is. This is something that starts to feel less like a habit and more like a place you actually live. And the reason it doesn't get talked about properly is because the people who experience it are usually the last ones to think anything is wrong, because from the inside it feels less like a problem and more like relief. So what's actually happening neurologically when you do this? Your brain has a network, the default mode network, that activates specifically when you're not focused on the outside world. When you stop paying attention to what's in front of you, this network lights up and it starts generating you, your memories, fears, and fantasies, your rehearsed conversations, your imagined futures. It's doing what it was designed to do. But in some people, that network doesn't only activate occasionally, it becomes the preferred setting. The brain starts to treat internal simulation as more rewarding than external reality. And that's a significant shift from normalcy, because once that happens, the real world starts to feel thin, flat, like it's missing substance. Professor Eli Somer, a clinical psychologist at the University of Haifa, formally identified this pattern in 2002 and called it maladaptive daydreaming, a term that still doesn't fully capture what it feels like from the inside, but it's the most grounded framework we have. So what did he find? Well, it's that maladaptive daydreaming isn't just a distraction. People were spending hours, sometimes the majority of their waking day, inside narratives they had built entirely in their own minds. Detailed worlds, recurring characters, plots that evolved over months and years. And almost all of them had one thing in common. The fantasy world gave them something the real world hadn't. Not escapism in the lazy, dismissive way people use that word, like you're avoiding responsibility. It's more that the imagined scenarios tend to give people control, emotional resolution, or a version of connection that felt safe in a way real relationships hadn't. You can pause a fake conversation. You can rewind it. You can make the other person finally understand in a way that the actual human in your life never quite did. That sounds like quite the adaptation, doesn't it? The problem, and there is one eventually, the brain starts to learn that emotional needs can be met internally, and when that learning becomes strong enough, stepping back into the friction of real life starts to feel genuinely worse than staying in. Real people are unpredictable. Real life conversations don't go the way you scripted them. Intimacy is terrifying and slow, and involves a lot of sitting with uncertainty. The daydream never disappoints you that way. So you keep going back, and people don't expect it. It's not about being creative. Some of the most imaginative people in the world don't actually do this. And some people who've never written a word of fiction in their lives do it compulsively, every single day. It's not based on intelligence either. The research suggests higher absorption, which is the personality trait linked to deep immersive focus, is a factor. This means the people most prone to this are often the same people who get completely lost in music, or can't watch a film without feeling genuinely wrecked afterward. They feel everything more intensely, so they built a room where they could feel things on their own terms. And then there's the most damaging part, the shame spiral. When you're doing this, when you're 30 minutes deep into a scenario where you're finally saying the thing you never got to say at age 14, you know on some level that time is passing. You know somewhere in the back of your mind that the world kept moving while you were gone. And resurfacing carries this weird emotional aftertaste, hard to name but easy to feel. And before you've even consciously decided anything, you're already halfway back in. So the cycle compounds. The shame feeds the need. The need deepens the habit, and the habit starts to take up more and more of the space where your actual life is supposed to be happening. But that doesn't mean this is inherently a flaw. Not even a little bit. The people who develop this pattern are, statistically, people who, at some point, needed an exit door that the real world wasn't providing. Maybe their home wasn't safe, or they were chronically lonely in environments that were supposed to feel welcoming. Perhaps they were just a little too sensitive for the particular world they landed in, and this was the most creative yet least destructive way their nervous system found to cope. So the daydream wasn't the problem itself, but the solution to it. The real question is just whether it's still serving you now, or whether it's started to cost you something. And this is where I want you to actually stop and think for a second. Some people who find themselves somewhere in this will immediately jump to fixing it, like the goal is to eliminate the inner world entirely. But that's not what the research points towards, and honestly, it doesn't make much psychological sense. The goal isn't to become someone who never disappears into their own head. The goal is instead to figure out what the disappearing is doing for you, and then slowly, probably awkwardly, start building some of that in reality. What does the imagined version of connection give you that you're not letting yourself ask for out loud? What does the fantasy version of resolution give you that you're not allowing yourself to actually pursue? What is the scenario rehearsing that you're too afraid to actually live? The fact that you can build entire worlds inside your own mind with emotional nuance and narrative coherence and characters that feel real, that's an impressive capability, a genuinely remarkable one. The people who experience this most intensely are often sitting on an enormous amount of internal richness that has just never found the right outlet, or the right person, the right moment of safety to exist in the real world. The tragedy isn't that they imagine so deeply. Somewhere along the way, they decided that depth was only safe when it was invisible. So if you watched this entire video and felt a particular kind of quiet recognition, not the, "oh, that's interesting" kind, but the kind where you had to remind yourself to breathe, I just wanted to remind you that nothing about you needs to be fixed. You adapted, quietly, privately, in a way nobody ever saw or gave you credit for. Most people don't even realize they're doing it. If you're interested in exploring some of my explanations further, I've put together a collection of books that dive deeper into psychology, human behavior, and independent thinking. You can find the full list on my bookshop page through the link in the description and pinned comment. And if you really enjoy content like this, consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss future uploads. I genuinely appreciate all your support. See you in the next one.